How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your April 2019 horoscope for Aries, Sun, and Rising. How's it going, guys? Thank you guys so much for being here. I'm so glad that you can be here. Let's go ahead and jump to, or cut the chase. Let's go ahead and start talking about what's going on for this month. I wasn't able to do my last month's horoscope, so we do have a little bit of catching up to do. The first thing that I wanted to talk about, the thing that's going to basically be happening right before we actually go into April is Venus is going to be in Pisces and Mars is going to enter Gemini. Mars is actually entering Gemini on March 31st, so that's going to be happening right before we get into April. However, what I wanted to hit on was, as Venus goes into Pisces now, Venus is now going to be in your 12th house. So Venus, this planet of value and love and relationships, she's about bringing things together and she wants to create harmony. She wants to enjoy what she's doing. She's now in her exalted sign, so she's in one of her favorite signs to be in, where she can naturally exuberate that energy at a very clear level, is a good way to put it. And as Venus is in Pisces, this really has to do with valuing things that are a little bit different, not having to necessarily put boundaries on things or borders or define things. It's about being a little bit more open and receptive to what it is that we want and being able to receive that in different areas. Now, as Venus is in Pisces, she's going to be going through your 12th house for about the majority of the month. She will later be going on into the sign of Aries, but as she's in Pisces, she'll be going through your 12th house. Now, the 12th house is about repressed parts of yourself, unacknowledged parts of yourself. It has to do with the subconscious. It's a very hidden area, and it oftentimes can be hard to see what's going on in there. And so as Venus goes through your 12th house, this is definitely going to be a time of reflection of, pondering what it is that you do want and what it is that you do value. And sometimes those things can look a little bit unique and different and weird. However, as Venus goes through Pisces for the majority of this month, you're definitely going to be feeling a sense of I don't want to say seclusion, but a little bit more of an isolation, and really just wanting to understand and be a little bit more open with what it is that you want to receive, what it is that you want to have, what it is that you do enjoy, and more of pondering those type of things. Now, as we do move forward, on March 31st, we do have Mars entering Gemini, where Mars is basically going to be in Gemini for this whole month. Mars is going to be transiting your 3rd house, and the 3rd house is all about communication, how you speak, how you write. It has to do with your neighbors and your siblings. It has to do with your close immediate, like environment. It has to do with education. Not so much as the 9th house is more of like college and higher education. The 3rd house is teaching and learning, though. Now we have Mars going through here, and Mars he's a dry planet. It has to do with anger and frustration. Also has to do with your energy and your drive and where you're really kind of, how fast you're kind of going on the freeway. Now as Mars is in Gemini, Mars, this planet, again, action and energy as well as angers and frustrations, he's going to be in the sign of Gemini, which is a dualistic sign. It's the twins. As Mars goes through Gemini, this is definitely going to be a time of where you're going to be more fixated, more focused on multiple different things. You're not going to be able to pinpoint exactly what it is, you're wanting to focus on, but you may be busy with one thing and another thing. Now, as Mars is in your 3rd house, as it's transiting your 3rd house, this is definitely going to show up in the way that you communicate, in the way that maybe if you're learning something new or maybe you're a teacher, this is definitely going to show up in that area where maybe you want to split things in two different ways. As well, Mars going through Gemini in your 3rd house, you could have some irritations with your siblings and the people that are in close proximity to you. As well, with Mars going through Gemini, this is also a time of learning. This is a time of gaining information and understanding it and learning about it and learning to do something with it. So that is going to be going on for the majority of the month. During this time, Mars is also going to be in opposition to Jupiter, which, while Jupiter's in your 9th house, while it is about, you're kind of discovering and exploring what your spiritual beliefs are, there's a lot of good positive energy in there. Mars is going to be looking at that and saying, what am I doing with it and what can I do with it? So as we move forward into, we're 5 minutes in, we still got more to talk about. On April 5th is the next big thing that we got going on. We have the new moon in Aries. So before I even forget, which I totally did already, happy birthday, Aries. However, if you're watching this from your sun sign, however, we have the new moon in Aries on April 5th. And this is happening in your 1st house of your personality, of yourself, of your body, of your soul. And I mean, even if you're an Aries sun or an Aries rising, this is going to be a bigger deal for you anyway. And as we have this new moon, this is both of the luminaries being pointed into one sign and bringing the attention to whatever sign that is. And because this is in Aries, Aries has to do with, you know, starting and initiating things. I love using the term initiation for Aries. Aries is about, you know, in a mythological sense, about like, you know, war and anger and stuff like that. But Aries has to do with our identity and how we perceive ourselves. And also with this coinciding with your first house, this has a lot to do with maybe resetting your intentions with how you portray yourself, how you put your personality out there, how you I don't want to say frame or structure your personality or your sense or yourself, but be more of that natural person that you are. So that new moon is going to be really positive for putting the focus on yourself, putting the attention on yourself, and looking at what are better ways that you can go about being you. Now, there are a couple things that are happening in between that. We are going to have Mercury conjoining Neptune again as it goes direct. And we're also going to be having the South Node going over Pluto in between this time of March 31st and April 5th. However, as we move forward, the next big thing that's going on is we have Jupiter stationing retrograde. Jupiter station retrogrades at about 24 degrees Sagittarius on April 10th. And this isn't the biggest thing in the world, but there are a lot of people have questions about retrograde planets. And as Jupiter starts to make his retrograde, this is definitely, you know, like I said, it's not the biggest in the world, but it's something you want to pay attention to. As Jupiter moves forward and flies forward, this has a lot to do with, you know, what our beliefs are, what our spiritual faith is, what we're hoping for, what our wishes and dreams may be. And as Jupiter retrogrades, everything that you have experienced that you've learned during this time, it's time to go over it, see what you believe about it, see if that's where you want to put your philosophy in. And I bring this up because Jupiter's in your 9th house right now, which their 9th house is about spiritual beliefs, foreign travel, far distance places, foreign languages, higher education and learning. It also has to do with publishing. And as Jupiter retrogrades in this area, for the past couple months as Jupiter's been in Sagittarius, you might have had a lot of hope and optimism here. Jupiter retrograding is just a time to look over everything that kind of came to you during this time. Maybe if there's positive, you know, or optimistic, you know, future events being foretold with Jupiter going through this area. As Jupiter retrogrades, this is about reflecting on these things and understanding, you know, what do you believe about this? Is this what you believe? Is this what you've been wanting to go for? Is this your truth, in essence? In between the new moon in Aries on the 5th and Jupiter going retrograde, as well, the next big thing that we have going on is on April 16th. We have Mercury going into Aries, and it's leaving shadow. However, we do have a few things in between that I just wanted to make a small note on, just so you guys are aware. We do have Venus conjoining Neptune in Pisces in between this time. So that is going to be a little bit important, because that Venus and Pisces energy is going to get real diluted with Neptune. It's going to get real heavy. We also have the Sun squaring Saturn, which is definitely initiating, you know, not necessarily initiating, but realizing an issue with, you know, where it is that we want to structure ourselves and what it is that we're initiating into, what it is that we're wanting to start. We also have Mercury squaring Jupiter for the last time during this time, so I do think that there's going to be a lot more of understanding of what Jupiter and Sagittarius is being brought to us, and that Mercury square Jupiter is going to kind of clear up all that stuff that we dealt with the retrograde. And as well as Mercury squares Jupiter, I think this is going to give us a little bit more insight as to what Jupiter retrograde is going to look like for you for the next couple months. Now, like I said, the next big thing is on April 16th. We have the Mercury going into Aries, and it's finally leaving shadow. So I find this really positive because Mercury's been in retrograde in Pisces, and it's sign of detriment. It doesn't work that well right there. But as it leaves shadow, it goes into Aries. It's, you know, Mercury is this planet of communication and how we speak, how we talk, what's going on in our minds, where our mindset is really at. And so as Mercury goes into the sign of Aries of, here is my voice, here's how I'm feeling, this is what I'm projecting, this is what I'm voicing out, this is the way I see things, and this is the way that I do things. I think this is definitely going to be a lot more helpful in terms of getting ourselves more clear with where our minds need to be. This Mercury retrograde could have definitely switch some things up for you guys. So as Mercury now goes into Aries and it's direct, you know, we have a fresh mindset, we have a fresh beginning, a fresh way to look at things now as we go into April. So this is exciting stuff. The next big thing that we have going on is on April 19th, we have the second full moon in Libra. Now, the first full moon in Libra we just had back on like March 20th on the spring equinox. The second full moon in Libra is at the very last degrees of Libra, and it's not the biggest deal in the world that there's 2 full moons in Libra, but what it is a big deal is that this is happening in your 7th house of relationships. So what's important about this is that the 7th house is about relationships. While the 1st house is about you and yourself, the 7th house is about your partner, or basically any one person you can throw in there. And as you have this full moon in Libra, I think this is about understanding the blending of your own self and what your needs and wants are, and more of understanding how you portray yourself, how your personality is, and learning to match that and learning to work with that in the terms of relationships. You know, how do you balance that out? How do you integrate yourself within relationships? How do you, give and how do you take? How do you receive and how do you, again, give? So this full moon in Libra is going to be bringing up a lot of, not necessarily a lot of emotions, but highlighting how you may feel about a lot of certain relationships. So keep that in mind. As we move forward on the next day, on April 20th, 420, we have the sun moving into Taurus. So we get out of Aries season, we have the sun moving into Taurus where, spring is definitely now here, it's fixated, things are growing, we're wanting to be more stable, we're wanting to be more secure, and we're finding ways to ground ourselves, and we're finding ways to also enjoy it too. This is a Venus-ruled sign, it's about, it's about Venus things, looking good, feeling good, eating good, enjoying the beauty. And as the sun also goes into your 2nd house of Taurus, this is going to deal a little bit more with where your financial matters are at, what you physically own and what you physically possess. That's really what the solar theme of it is really going to be, but it's not the biggest deal in the world. However, also on April 20th, we have Venus going into Aries, and this is going to be somewhat exciting, somewhat a little bit negative, only because Venus was in Pisces in your 12th house. Sure, she was in her exalted sign, but she was in a weird area in your guys' chart. However, as Venus moves into Aries, she moves into her sign of fall, where she doesn't work as well, or not fall, she's actually in detriment in Aries. She doesn't work as well there as she normally could. It's not her favorite sign to be in. She's very far away from home. Aries is about confrontation and, addressing things and pushing things, while Venus, this Libra-ruled planet, is about receiving and working together and giving. While Venus is going into Aries where it could be difficult to deal with, she is going into your 1st house, which is very positive. Venus going into your 1st house, you may start, if you get a makeover, this is a good time for that. You may be looking better, you may be feeling better, you may be giving yourself more of that self-love attitude stuff. However, as Venus is in Aries, this is really about time to go, what do you value about yourself? And what do you value about your identity? And where do you need to bring more of that value into play? Where do you need to see and realize that value and more so on an everyday level? Venus in Aries is also kind of like you possess yourself and you value the idea of possession, of ownership, of this type of stuff. So this is a good time to really take ownership of yourself and stay integral to what it is that you do value, Venus stuff, what it is that you do believe, what it is that you do want, and what it is that you do desire. Now, as we move forward, a couple days later, on April 22nd, we have the sun conjoining Uranus. This is basically the next big deal, is as the sun conjoins Uranus, now that Uranus is locked in Taurus, it's in your 2nd house, so you've seen financial situations, you've seen the things that you've owned and that you possess. You might have seen, a big up and down, maybe a liberation or a breakthrough or a breakdown. Uranus is kind of bringing up a lot of questions with your finances and with your money. And as the sun conjoins Uranus right there, I think this is definitely going to be a time of realizing and seeing exactly what Uranus in your 2nd house is going to look like. So make sure that you pay mental note to that. And then the next big thing as we move on to the end of the month is on April 26th, we have Mars squaring Neptune. And I wanted to write this down only because as Mars is in Gemini and it's in your 3rd house where you're wanting to do this and do that and spread yourself out in 2 different ways. As it squares Neptune in your 12th house, the only issue I see having here is you may see things in a very idealistic nature, and the more that you pursue and the more that you spread yourself thin and not concentrate that energy somewhere, the more you're going to realize that those ideologies not only they do not serve you, but they're not going to be real. So while Mars is squaring Neptune, be sure that whatever it is that you're applying yourself to, whatever it is that you're attempting to do, whatever it is that you're focused on, make sure you have a pathway, a clear pathway of what of what working up is going to look like. Mars squaring Neptune can really dilute, you know, it's kind of like you think you're doing this, but you end up not getting the result that you expected. So be very clear about Mars squaring Neptune, about what it is that you're putting your energy into and what expectations you have getting out of those. Now, the other thing is on April 26th, Pluto is going to station retrograde. It's the last planet out in the solar system. It's not even technically a planet anymore. Pluto stationing retrograde isn't going to be the biggest deal in the world. However, I do think it is going to be important as the South Node is going over Pluto over this whole month. This has a lot to do with letting go of, you know, the fears and the anxieties that we can have over this structural change that we're going through. And not even on a socio-political level, like what it is that we're feeling, how it is that we define ourselves. So I think Pluto stationing retrograde and going backwards is going to be a little bit interesting, especially with Saturn coming up closer to it as well. So keep in mind that, you know, Pluto's in Capricorn, our structures are changing, and this is going to be the time to really go with that change and stop resisting it. And then the last thing that's really going on is on April 30th, the last day of April, I want to make sure it wasn't 31 days, we have the South Node going over Saturn. And this is a really big deal. Saturn and Capricorn's showing us where we limit ourselves, where we need to have more structure and stability and security in our lives. And this is happening in your 10th house of your career, of your public vocation, what you're going to be known for. Big in the, you know, everyone sees it. It's the public eye. And as the South Node goes over Saturn during this time, the South Node being the dragon's tail, what our past is, what we're wanting to let go of, but what we have to learn how to use in order to go in the direction we want to. Saturn is saying, take all of this stuff that doesn't serve you anymore, that you want to let go of, and put it in a box, and don't worry about that anymore. It's time, like, does that work? Does that build up your infrastructure? Is that giving you a solid sense of security and stability? And, you know, Saturn's in your 10th house right now. This has a lot of limitations, a lot of walls and barriers you can be dealing with in your career right now. However, as the South Node goes over that, this is a time of, like, I don't want to say, like, not letting those limitations get to you, but, you know, moving past what those walls are. It's not about going, here's my walls, here's my borders, I have to play within that. It's kind of like the South Node over Saturn's like, even though these walls are here, they don't affect me. I'm not worried about what these walls or limitations look like. I'm more worried about what it is I want to build, what it is I want to achieve, and what it is I want to create that's going to be long term. And I think that's going to be really important for this month. So that's basically what's going on for April. I know I went through that really fast. There is a lot of energy going on this month, but, you know, my biggest advice is just wake up. This is springtime. You're going to be feeling different. You're going to be feeling a little bit better. And there's a lot of change going on this month. This sounds super cliche of just like, oh, just go with it. But really, though, as we go into April, April's kind of the change-up month of 2019 before we get into the, you know, gnarly stuff going on this summer. So definitely, I don't want to say prepare for that, but what things come to you during this time of April, go with it, don't resist it, and just pick up what it is that the universe is trying to put down for you. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for watching and liking and sharing and commenting and subscribing. I love and appreciate every single one of you guys, and I'll be seeing you guys next month.